Started. Hey everyone, welcome to today's Level Up Together. Let me share the screen. We are continuing our reading of the Monsters and Magical Sticks. Um, Today is, I think, week 4. We're reading. And what else? Let's see. This meeting is being recorded, and by being here, you're giving me the permission to be recorded, and I will be posting these videos on the level 1 groups and any other groups. Whoever wants to join us and catch up on replays and all that. I'm a level 4 practitioner and I'm here as your host because everyone's views and insights are what makes this group a wonderful group to grow and learn together. So with that said, let's get started. So we are on chapter 5, Belief Systems of Monsters and Magical Sticks. So if you all can open your book and whoever would like to read, you can start reading.
I will, since I can be here the whole time.
Sounds good. Thank you, Sherry.
Okay, hallucination. Using traditional hypnosis, you could take a good subject, whatever that is, induce a deep trance, whatever that is, and suggest to the subject that when he opens his eyes, he will see 6 growling dogs moving toward him in a menacing way. This good subject would, upon opening his eyes, respond very strongly to the suggested metaphor. If he happened to be connected to physiological monitoring devices, they would register his strong responses. While responding to this hypnotically induced metaphor, the subject would evidence anger and defensiveness to any suggestion that the dogs were not really there. His inner belief system tells him that the dogs, are real, and that's how he will respond. Experts in the art of hypnosis would define the above phenomena as a hypnotically induced positive hallucination, that is, creating something that doesn't exist to which a subject responds as if it does. Another way of defining the above phenomena would be to state that through hypnosis, a belief was temporarily induced, metaphorically, within the subject, that this belief became his inner map of the world, and he responded as if his metaphor were the real world. As long as his belief system continues to be operative, he will continue to respond to the dogs as if they are real. Bandler and Grinder in 1975 contend that we do not operate on the world directly or immediately, but rather through internal maps or belief systems of the world, and that the map is not the territory. The patient or any individual who says, I can't succeed, or no one has ever loved me, is, in effect, using language to describe his map, his inner belief system, but not necessarily the real world or his real experiences. Maps, like language, select certain features and ignore others, and like language, maps are cultural expressions of elements significant to society. I might add that the individual's belief systems are more an expression of elements he has learned to believe are significant. However, what his map has left out may be more important than what he continues to see. Once a person becomes aware of the cultural bias in map making, he or she can never again take a map as an accurate depiction of the world. Creating a map is like sculpting a statue. What matters is not only what remains in view, but also what has been whittled away. We might state the above position in the following manner. We do not respond to reality, whatever reality is. In effect, we respond to and operate upon reality based on our metaphors, which become our individual and personal reality. Yeah, that was a lot of words, wasn't it?
What did you get out of it, Sherry?
Well, I was thinking that it's just a good picture of what Robert keeps telling us, that it's not happening now, and we latched onto some kind of belief or map at the time, and then it gets into the grooves of our brain, and that's how we operate. And it may not have been necessarily true, and it's certainly not true today in my world. But You're dealing with the subconscious who takes it and grabs a hold of it as real. And if you don't work with that, you're going to stay stuck.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyone else would like to share anything on that? What I also very much like is that this paragraph here, when once a person becomes aware of the cultural bias in the map making, he or she can never take a map as an accurate depiction of the world. And we can take the cultural bias as everyone else's perspective. Like their perspective is completely different, and in their view, their map is the right, they're doing all the right things, they're doing their best. But we, from our point of view, from our cultural bias, we can think that, oh, they're being selfish or they're being this or that. And, it's like everyone else's, or everyone, like, we got like 8 billion maps here on this earth. So it's very interesting that, that it's like they are doing their best in their own point of view. And hey, Susan.
Hey, I just want to share that, the using the illustration of the map, I think it's really good, but my brain for some reason has a hard time latching onto the map metaphor. If I use the word menu, I can relate to that more easily. The menu is not the food, where my brain gets hung up on the map thing. So whenever I see map, I'll write down menu and my brain will grab that. Where I don't know why it doesn't want to hold on to that map metaphor. It confuses me. The menu makes it clear for me. So just a little
Interesting.
something that makes it easier for me.
That makes sense. Definitely. Yeah, how I see is like this is my map of the world, this is where this should be, or this is how, I don't know. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Perhaps like you're like super, super visual maybe, so it's like the map is not making sense. I'm not
Mm.
sure.
Maybe because I'm directionally illiterate, I'm directionally challenged. I often say I'm directionally retarded. I get lost north, south, east, west, makes no sense to me. The menu makes sense to me. The map,
Yes.
and direction, it just doesn't click in my mind. So it's probably has to do more with this spatial thing.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So interesting. All right. Hey, Sherry Neil. Good to see you. Good to have you here. Not seen
Hi,
you.
sorry, I can't show my face today because I
That's okay.
decided I do it to do a face plant in the street, and I look like I've
Oh,
been in a fight and I lost.
oh no. I'm
No,
so
it's all good.
sorry.
No, it's good.
We
So
are,
anyway,
anyway, I hope you're feeling better.
I feel great, but I'm incognito. I didn't want to scare anyone or give you hallucinations or things
Oh,
to dream about.
yeah, I hope it all gets better fast. Yikes.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway,
Anyway, so
thanks.
we are on page 49 on the chapter 5, belief systems,
Oh, am I reading this? What? I'm sorry.
on monsters and magical sticks.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I have that. I'm right here on page 43. No,
49. Okay, we are on
page
page 49.
49. Well, I didn't really affect my brain. Yes, 49. Beliefs, good or bad. Okay.
Okay. All right. Anyone else has any insights on that? If not, we can move on to beliefs, good or bad. Who would like to read?
I will.
Go for it.
Okay. Beliefs, good or bad. To every transaction between individuals, whether it be between friends, lovers, parent, child, patient, therapist, each person brings with him, her, a set of belief systems or inner maps. I believe that most of these belief systems are effective and enable individuals to obtain their desired goals. However, some of these belief systems may be less than effective and may lead to painful destinations. The individuals who come into a therapist's office seeking help also bring with them a whole history, a whole background, a whole set of belief systems. Most of these belief systems are constructive and useful, Otherwise, those individuals would not have survived long enough to seek help. But in areas in which they are evidencing pain and dysfunction, their belief system in that area is either the problem or prevents them from finding the solution. It is as if once upon a time they were given a map that indicated that San Diego County was really San Francisco, California. California, sorry. They have spent a great deal of their life trying to prove to everyone that San Diego is San Francisco, and then sneaking up to San Francisco and moving it brick by brick to San Diego to prove that their map was really right. I believe it would be much more helpful to help them make a new map. It is one of my basic belief systems that individuals have been hypnotized into their metaphoric belief systems, whether those metaphors are graceful and efficacious or painful and self-limiting. As I've stated earlier, I believe that all learning is a form of hypnosis and that hypnotic transactions occur between people all the time. The individual who's been hypnotized into seeing 6 growling dogs responds more or less the same way as the person who is sure he can't succeed, or who knows she will never find anyone to love her, or who hears voices telling him to do strange things, etc. Those individuals are sure of those things because their belief systems exclude any facts that might prove otherwise. Too often, in my opinion, therapists are prone to accept those painful maps as accurate and then help their patients to really get into the feelings. An individual enters a therapist's office and complains that no one has ever loved him and been kind to him, that everyone has ripped him off. If the therapist accepts those statements as being true, in fact, then I believe that the therapist has experienced being hypnotized by the patient. If you will now consider hypnosis as itself a metaphor, that is, hypnosis substitutes one type of awareness for another, one reality for another, then the therapist has been hypnotized into accepting another's reality, and awareness is true. In the first place, since that individual has survived to tell his tale, someone in the past has been kind to him, fed him, saw to his clothing, etc. What kind of kids he played with as a child, gifts he received in the past. Is he lying? That's one possibility. Another possibility is that his belief systems are such that he has excluded from his conscious awareness anything that might contradict his personal metaphors. He may even distort his conscious awareness to fit his metaphors. The therapist who accepts the patient's metaphor as reality is going to find him or herself following the patient's map and ending up just as lost. But therapists don't do that, do they? Ridiculous, isn't it? Of course, a conservative Republican might insist that all Democrats are horse thieves, but not all horse thieves are Democrats. A liberal Democrat might prove that all Republicans have sold out to big business, but those are different, aren't they? In the example of the hypnotically induced metaphor, 6 growling dogs, suggestion keeps the hallucination operative. Where an individual knows that everyone hates him, or she will always fail, or whatever the problem may be, his belief systems keep those hallucinations going. We might consider that at some point in time, someone or something created a metaphor or hypnotic suggestion that he interpreted to mean that people hate him or that he will always fail. During his lifetime, he has, in all probability, experienced someone liking and approving of him, and has no doubt been successful at many things, yet his belief systems produce the hypnotic phenomenon called negative hallucination, not seeing or hearing what there is to see or hear, which results in not seeing or hearing information that conflicts with what he believes. In effect, his belief systems have created an inner map that he selects from the world, those signposts that match the map. Just as attempting to convince a hypnotic subject with logic that the growling dogs are not real will be met with resistance, so too will attack his inner belief systems, most often met with the same results, resistance. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have read that much. I'm sorry. Well, this was fascinating to me because when you have, I have friends who always dwell on the past and they think the past is going to just, this is bad, this is bad. And it's very frustrating to keep reminding them, are you kidding? Do you realize what you've done? Do you realize what you have? I mean, you are still alive. I mean, those things. And they've just sort of put themselves in this hypnosis that life, I guess, sucks. Excuse my language. And so I just, as I read through this, I thought, that's fascinating to me. That if you went into a therapist's office with all of this stuff, you'd never be healed. It'd just be a constant carousel for everybody. Nobody could get off because you'd all be living this lie or whatever. So I'm glad I'm not a therapist. I mean, how do you differentiate between someone lying and not really knowing the truth? So I guess that's a golden rule number one, never go to a therapist. Okay. That's kind of what I got from this is that yowza. Okay.
Ah, thanks, Sherry. Yes. Anyone else would like to share anything on that? Yes, there's positive and negative hypnosis, right? Believing something to be there that's not there, like the dogs, or believing that something is not there that is there. That's the negative hallucination. Hey, Susan.
Yeah, so rather than being seeing is believing, it's the opposite. Believing is seeing. So we delete what we don't believe and we only see more proof of what we have going on inside, basically. So believing is seeing.
Seeing. And also we can put it in a positive frame is whatever we believe, we can start seeing that in our world in a good way, right?
Right.
And that's what manifesting is, right? Otherwise, because that's all pretty much what it is before we were not even seeing it because we didn't believe it was there. And we start visualizing it, we start um seeing that, start believing that, and we actually start seeing that in our world. We start finding the proofs of it. And as we improve, as we heal, we start seeing more and more of it. Yeah. Anyone else? Hey, Sherry.
Yeah, I kind of hooked onto that word metaphor, his personal metaphor. And I thought, what if all of my limiting beliefs and old memories are just really metaphors? When I think of a metaphor, it's just a picture, but it didn't really happen. And really, in all likelihood, an old memory I have that I haven't changed is probably a metaphor. It didn't really happen the way I have come to believe through the years. So I don't know. I just kind of latched on to that metaphor and I'm thinking, well, that could help me. Just think if they didn't happen the way I remember them happening. I'm sure of it. Especially if I was 7 years old. How much of the world did I know or see? So, I think I'm going to just kind of think on that more of it all being a metaphor.
Yeah, exactly. So it is just a metaphor, like a 7-year old, by the time when it's 7, they soak up a lot of stuff and then they form these belief and the meaning about themselves, right?
Yeah.
What meaning they give to life, what meaning they give to the people, and then after that, the 7-year old starts soaking up the different events from that
And
metaphor.
think how limited the world view is of a 7-year-old. I mean, no experiences, no, outside, most of their influence a little bit from school, but mostly from their own parents. That's so limiting. And that's what we build our whole life on,
Yeah.
beliefs. Crazy.
And as it is crazy, right? And then as we're changing our memories, we're not really changing what happened in reality. We're creating a better metaphor for ourselves.
Yeah.
It's like these are all just metaphors.
Mhm.
Yeah. Definitely. So cool. You, Cherry? Anyone else? Anything on this whole thing? Metaphors, belief systems? All right. Now we can continue on the next section. Who would like to read?
Is that belief system memories?
Yes. Thank you,
I'll
Susan.
read. Okay, yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
As I stated earlier, we do not respond to or operate on the world reality itself, but rather we operate or respond to the world based on our internal sets of belief systems. To the same real world situation, there can be and often is a multitude of responses and beliefs. Two people go to the beach together. One of them smiles and says, "Doesn't that look beautiful? It feels so warm and pleasant. Wow, I just love the beach." The other person responds with, "Gag, it's awful, terrible, and dirty. Look at all the sand fleas and the tar on the ground. The heat makes me sticky and smelly. I don't know how you can stand it." Well, the beach is the beach, and yet two entirely different and incompatible responses. Each individual is responding physiologically, psychologically, and emotionally based on their own belief systems as to the beach. These belief systems stem from their own memories, metaphors, as to the meaning of a beach to them, and these memories have in fact become their own individual reality. Memories are thus physical systems in brains whose organization and activities constitute records or representations of the outside world, not in the passive sense of pictures, but as action systems. The representations are accurate to the extent that they allow the organism to represent appropriate actions to the world. J.Z. Young, 1978. One might be tempted to say that the beach has become as if a hypnotic cue that sets into motion certain specific responses based on each individual's memories as to the beach. But of course, hypnosis cannot result from a beach or a memory, can it? Belief systems, whether graceful and efficacious or painful and destructive, are formed in a multitude of ways: modeling, learning models, circumstances, traumas, repetition of events, and suggestions, etc. It is my belief that no matter how they are formed, they affect all of our behaviors in ways that are similar to that of a hypnotic phenomena. Whatever the specific causative factors may be, belief systems are at least partially created by and continue via the vehicle of suggestion and the example and parameters set by others. We must think of a world image, then, as the most comprehensive, most complex synthesis of the myriads of experiences, convictions, and influences of their interpretations of the resulting ascription of value and meaning to the objects of perception, which an individual can muster. The world image is, in a very concrete and immediate sense, the outcome of communication, suggestion. It is not a world, but a mosaic of single images which may be interpreted in one way today and differently tomorrow, a pattern of patterns, an interpretation of interpretations, the result of incessant decisions about what may and what may not be included in these meta interpretations, which themselves are the consequences of past decisions. P. Watzlawick, 1978. Wow, that's a mouthful. It's an interpretation of pictures and experiences, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's confusing. Our memories are confusing, is what that sounds like, and not reality for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of hooked on to the same same phrase as well. It's an interpretation of interpretations. And so it's like we are interpreting what perhaps our parents interpreted about the world, which their parents interpreted about the world, and we are like forming our worldview based on interpretation of interpretations, which is very confusing. Yeah. and on and on it goes. So it's kind of time to step out of that hypnosis of it, right? Yeah. Yeah. Any other insights, Randall? Anything else, Sherry? Anything you would like to share on that?
No, that was a great thing you just pointed out. That's good. I just got through writing that down. So thank you. That makes a lot of sense in interpretation of an interpretation. Wowza.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. Any other insights on that?
I think that's kind of what confirmation bias is about, is that we have formed our belief systems and then we see the whole world through those same lenses at which we've been formed, and that's why our reality is somewhat consistent to us because we see what we look for in the way we look for it and not necessarily reality, or that's what makes
Like
our,
what? Yeah.
which is why in Fastery of Tea, one of the premises, if I'm not mistaken, is whatever the person's truth is that we assume it's the truth. It's their truth, which is a form of respect and a starting place.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Randall. Certainly. Yeah. Just having that, what's the word? Anyway, yeah. But, it's their truth, how they look at that's their truth, and we respect that. And I also like what you said, we see what we see and how we see it.
Thank you.
And that's everyone's personal viewpoint, everyone's lenses.
One of my favorite analogies is that your belief systems are the tinting on the lenses at which you see the world.
Definitely. Yeah, I really like that tinting
And I found it perfect
metaphor.
for it at one point, which the graphic shows a set of sunglasses, and through the sunglasses, everything is beautiful and tropical. But on the outside of the sunglasses, which you can see in the image, it's totally different than the way the person's seeing it. And based on the analogy of rose-colored glasses.
Yeah, we might be like walking around with a certain colored glass and different colored glasses in different areas of our life,
Yeah.
you know? And we might be seeing a relationship with a certain people with a certain tint of glasses, while the reality is completely different, and we keep getting triggered because our glasses are just allowing us to see a certain way, seeing certain thing, picking out those certain particular things, oh, the way they say certain things. I'm saying certain too many times, but basically we are just seeing what we are choosing to see based on the glasses we are wearing, right? So it's like, but the reality could be completely different. And I really like the beach analogy. So in truth, the beach is just where there's a bunch of water that meets the sand, and a bunch of I don't know, sand, which is just you know ground down seashells, etc., and rocks and stuff. But some people see it as this beautiful place of just belonging, peace, peacefulness, and joy and fun. Some people see it as sticky, messy, dirty. It's like, the truth is it's just the beach. As I like how they pointed that out in the book. So it's so interesting. It's different people's glasses. Yeah. All right. If you are ready, we can step into the next section, negative beliefs. Who would like to read?
I'll read.
Please, thank you.
One of the questions I often have, which sorry, I know I'm supposed to be reading at this point, but
No,
is like,
please.
how does one recognize what the truth behind the beliefs are? Like, it's not like not the beliefs, but what is the actual truth? That the beach is just the beach. How does one identify what your programming is versus what the reality is? I
Yeah,
never have the answer to that. And,
like,
and that's why the analogy is that the oh, how did he put it? The instructions on how to get out of the box are written on the outside.
Yeah, isn't it subjective versus objective? You know, subjective is what we're feeling, objective is what the physical reality is. Like there's sand, there's salt, salt is sticky, but what we make of it, whether we like it or not, is subjective. It's not objective.
Yeah. How do you recognize the difference between your subjective perception and objective perception, though? Especially when you're so invested in the meaning of who you are is based on, all your belief systems.
right. So how I see it, it's like there's a few different ways of seeing that. There's a spiritual way of seeing it, and there's a practical way of seeing it. Practically, I see it as like we are always in a trance. We're never not in a trance, right?
Mhm.
Um, so it's about if that trance is keeping us in a bad place, keeping us in a hurt, pain, it's time to change that trance. And that's why we change the memories. We change it to a better memory, a better trance for us, so that we can step into the future of our life with a better metaphor, with a better trance, with a better outlook, mindset, and we can be a better person for ourselves and for people around us, right? If seeing it from a negative point of view is keeping us in a hurtful place, and then from that hurtful place, we go up as a hurt person to the other, we're seeing it negatively. So it's time to perhaps change it to a better metaphor.
Right.
So
And
that's one.
belong to a cult or a religion or a family who doubles down and believes this, your very survival, you could be conditioned that your very survival is believing this, and you may never be able to look at something differently because it's not safe enough to do that.
Yes, exactly. And
And then
that's
you,
one of the, Mhm, go ahead.
sorry, and then you add programming like pain is good and your original sin, and you're designed to you're suffering because that's who you are. Buy
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. So those memories, like Robert says, sometimes when there's cultural biases and all that stuff of like, grieving is good or, like there's the original sin, so we are all supposed to be a certain way. It's not okay to be happy. Perhaps some cultures, if you're just being happy for no reason, what's wrong with you? You know?
Yeah, I love
So
husband, and I have to wear black for the rest of my life, and it's not okay for
yeah,
me to be anymore.
right. And so those can be really hard to change. You have to change the whole mindset. And sometimes one is not ready to change that mindset because that is so deeply ingrained.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, those are definitely like how does one see that? Because we're just so in that in the middle of this I don't know, like the picture that came to my mind is like this big puddle of muck, and we're like just sinking in the middle of it, that we don't even know how to that there's any other reality outside of it.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes just like, reading good stuff, like reading just level one manual over and over again, or watching the videos, or like just listening to a better perspective, those are all very helpful, just stepping out of the box in a little way, because the instructions, as you said, are outside the box sometimes. Yeah. And so, yeah, sometimes it can be very tricky.
Yeah. But,
And
especially
sometimes because, yeah, the security system and survival system is based on it, then what do you do, right?
right.
Yeah.
Shall I read?
Sure, yes. And then the second thing I was gonna say
Oh,
is like the spiritual part of it is like I don't know, but like what came to me is perhaps that's what being enlightened is that you step out of any trances, the good trance, the bad trance, and you just see I don't know, the truth, the real truth is the beach is just a beach, and not being sucked into the stories, good or bad. Then we can just be more like, I don't know, um unattached to the good or the bad of it, and we can be in peace, you know? I don't know if that makes sense, but
it's
just
very similar to Buddhism, I think. It's
yeah, being in the moment. That's what was coming to me. It's Buddhism, it's just being in the moment, the truth of the current moment instead of the stories. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Yeah, if you would like to read, go ahead, please.
some people are also negative beliefs. Some people are very much like soft, plush, wall-to-wall carpeting. They tend to keep the imprints of those people who walked on them in the past. Once this happens, these imprints, these belief systems, supplement and in many cases supplant so-called reality. When an individual's mosaic of single images is continually interpreted in a stereotyped way, he becomes stuck, and his range of choices is limited. If his belief systems tell him that no one likes him, or she always fails, or she may continue to distort or deny reality to support his world image. If we again examine a traditional version of hypnosis, the hypnotic belief systems, which holds that hypnosis is the communication of ideas and attitudes that take firm hold on an individual's inner belief systems, and then lead to the individual to respond to the implanted suggestions. We can see more clearly the relationship between hypnotic phenomena and belief systems. The child who is told to never say no or that he should not try to be better than his elders may grow up and act on those suggestions as if they were absolute laws, part of the Ten Commandments. That person knows that any violation of such commandments will bring great harm and pain. Now, that's not true in reality, but it is true in that person's inner world. This is basically what we were just talking about, right? Based on his belief systems, that person is operating under the hypnotic phenomena known as negative hallucination that leads him or her to continually deny external information that would prove that his belief systems are not necessarily accurate. Instead, he continues to be sad, miserable, depressed, and because his inner belief systems hypnotize him into following the very steps that cause those suggestions to bear that sour fruitation. Several years ago, a psychiatrist and I were discussing one of his patients. The psychiatrist was frustrated because he knew he could help the patient, but nothing is happening. He told me that he could really help if only his patient were more psychologically astute, more aware, more motivated, and could really understand the real purpose of their therapy. I replied, if your patient had all of those skills readily available, he sure as hell wouldn't need you. Have you considered working with the patient you have instead of the one you're dreaming about? Well, I can relate to that. The moral of this story is this: if an individual were capable of instantly being the way a therapist wants them to be, they wouldn't be in the therapist's office in the first place. Since that individual has sought help, it is a safe bet to assume that she or he is stuck, at least in some aspect of her life. And I believe that one of the first and perhaps the most important tasks at hand is to discover what keeps that individual from having new choices that would lead to being unstuck. To make those discoveries, it's my belief that you must examine their belief systems. Once you begin to understand better, yet recognize which belief systems are keeping them stuck, you must begin to work with the individual you have and not the one that you may have hallucinated. Using the individual's known and perhaps painful belief systems to lead them to new destinations is a graceful way of bringing about change. Want me to continue?
No, if you do you have anything to share?
Well,
Yeah.
I totally relate to this because I do work with other individuals, and many people are very insistent that the way they look at things is the only way it is, and that can be very challenging, especially if they're not happy, but they don't want to give up the ability to control the way they look at things because that's what they were taught. It's challenging.
Yeah, it is challenging, right? Yeah. And so then we go to the memories and new topics and we just go um and change those memories and change the belief systems. Hey, Sherry, did you have something to add to
Yeah,
it?
I was just saying that last sentence is really, it's just right on because I don't know, that just really stuck out to me using the individual's known and perhaps painful belief systems, which is a lot of just what Randall said, to lead them to new destinations is a graceful way to bring about change. I really like how he, I guess, as the man wrote this. I mean, it's just really, I don't know. I had to put highlight on it because that was good. I like that.
Yeah.
That was all I had to say. It wasn't very
Right.
profound.
It was just
Yeah.
as good as any other insight.
Oh boy, thanks. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
glad you
Thank
couldn't
you,
see me
Sherry.
because then you'd be so afraid. But
No, it's okay.
okay,
Oh,
Somehow you're programmed to minimize your input somehow, and yet you're masterful. I know you.
well, who knows what lurks in the minds of crazy women? So there we go.
Oh, that's a painful. Isn't that a little painful?
No, it just makes me giggle. So,
Okay. Well, be careful who you share that with. They might believe you.
oh, well, are we among friends or
I think we are.
I think I'm just crazy about music and, learning all this stuff. I feel really smart learning this stuff. Stuff. It's not really just stuff. You know what I mean. Anyway, it's all good. I have not been taking drugs, but it's all really good. Okay.
oh, thank you, Sherry and Rendell. I mean, Rendell, that was really interesting how you um I don't know what the right word is, but how you used her belief system to bring her to a good place. Sherry, your inputs and insights are just so valuable to any place you go, any group. So we love having you here.
Okay, well, thank you. Because if I was in
Yes.
around musicians and talking about music, I would feel much more comfortable. Sta bene, sì,
Mm.
sì.
Because
Okay.
you've taught as a professor of music the belief systems that you know serve musicians well, and therefore that's why you're already in alignment with that. That's why it's so easy for you to talk about that and not feel like you might be representing yourself in a that your opinion is less valid.
Now that's probably exactly right, Randall. Bravo. Grazie.
Thank you.
And
I
thank
have one last input is that, you use the word crazy and the reframe is crazy like a fox.
Yes, indeed. And don't forget it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. And what if, Sherry, you could bring your music metaphors
Hmm.
to, like, if you're reading here, and then that could just help us, I don't know, connect deeper to the understandings. So,
Interessante. I'll think about that.
yeah, definitely.
We're not at the
That
coda
would be
yet.
Do what?
I said we're not at the coda yet to bring in a new
Absolutely
musicality.
not. We're still
Not the end.
developing the melody with a lot of harmony and dissonance at most sometimes as well. And some
Beautiful.
hallelujahs.
wow. That was amazing.
Okay.
You.
Okay.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Any other insights on that? If not, we can go to the next section. Who would like to read Induction via Belief System? I can go ahead and read this section. We're almost to the end of the chapter. During one of my training seminars, a young psychologist was unhappy because he couldn't be hypnotized. He said he had really tried to cooperate, but to no avail, that he could still hear everything the other person was saying and that nothing different had happened. After asking him to sit down in front of the training group, I asked him the following. I guess you have a pretty good idea of what a person should be saying to you in order to hypnotize you properly, don't you? He nodded his head. Yes, and he said, I think I do, I replied. Since we're all here to learn, I would like to know what would need to happen to you to let you know that you were in a hypnotic state. He named several possibilities, including arm catalepsy. I emphasized his choice belief system by saying, do you mean that you believe that arm catalepsy is one way you would know that you're hypnotized? He replied, that's right, absolutely. I then asked him to do me a personal favor and close his eyes, which he did. I then told him that no matter what I said, he should ignore my remarks and, and instead listen to his own inner voice saying the proper words. He nodded his head, and I began saying a few unimportant things, such as you continue just as you are, and that's right, even more slowly, time to his breathing. After a few more such comments, I said, and keep on listening to your own inner voice. With that, I shut up. After 3 or 4 minutes, I took his right wrist gently and began to slowly raise his arm straight out in front of him, and then I held it out there for about 30 seconds. I then slowly let go. His arm remained where it was, and after almost 5 minutes, he opened his eyes. He looked at his cataleptic arm and said, I'll be damned, I did it. The above is an example of using an individual's unique belief system to help him experience change. In this case, the individual's belief system were used to produce what he wanted, but was failing to achieve, being hypnotized. When he stated that he could still hear the other person's voice and that nothing different had happened, he had used used words that described one of his maps, but not necessarily the real world. His map told him that he should not hear the hypnotist's voice. I therefore asked him to hear his own voice, and I just stopped talking. In addition, I used what he considered something different happening, arm catalepsy, to help him alter his state. Arguing with his belief systems or continuing to do what had already not worked, only more of it, and better, would probably have resulted in a more entrenched individual. You may wish now to utilize the above example as a guide towards developing some creative new approaches to those patients who are resistant and or intractable. If, as I believe, belief systems and responses that flow from them are almost hypnotic in nature, then using this thing that doesn't exist, hypnosis, to help give individuals a new map, may be in effect using what they already know to help them learn to experience something new. Where we fail to do this, use what they know, we may run the risk of encouraging the individual to continue to respond in his old belief system automatically and to deny the possibility of change. The individual's response may have become so automated that the source or original purpose of the response is lost from conscious awareness. Jung in 1978 started from a different place and perhaps going somewhere else, said all learning action come essentially from within as a result of operation of the programs, part inherited, part acquired. These programs cooperate with the signals coming from the sense organs, but even these are not simply imposed on us. What we see and hear is largely the result of our programs of search, some of them following habitual rhythms. Just as the hypnotic subject will respond to the 6 growling dogs automatically based on the hypnotic cue being presented, so too will individuals tend to associate certain external stimuli, cues, with certain stereotype responses. The external cue becomes a symbol or a metaphor that sets into motion a whole series of responses as if the individual was carrying out a post-hypnotic suggestion. Jung put that idea this way. The key to the concept as we are using it is that a symbol is a special sort of signal because it represents the feature of the surroundings in such a way that the organism immediately recognizes its significance and acts accordingly. So the programs of the brain symbolize the environment in the sense that they provide actions that correspond to or represent it. Some of the programs do this because of the heredity, and many of them are built up by the results of experiences of the environment recorded in the memory. That was very interesting. Yeah, so it's like I really love that all the learning is coming from within and is part inherited. So what we're learning is part inherited and part just our experiences, part acquired. And any cues we are seeing is like what we have learned, inherited. So it's like what we learned from our parents, perhaps, our caregivers. And we're just learning and reacting to the cues of the external, and we're just making up it to mean something that maybe it just doesn't mean that. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I mean, when I read that, then my mind was immediately going, oh, did we inherit that? Is it physically in me? And I mean, I know that's not part of what this means. So, yeah, I guess all the things that we learned when we were younger, just like probably y'all are pretty young, but when I was younger, I would all at once hear myself responding to the situations around me and think, is my mother here? Why? Why am I my mother? Good night. I vowed I would never say that. And I think that because I guess that's what we inherited, you learned all of those things and then they just kind of come and they're I guess waiting for you, to come pop out in your brain. So Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really it's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I know, but
Very interesting. Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Sherry. Anyone else like to share anything else on that? Yeah, good stuff. Mhm. We have these belief systems that, like this example, oh, I'm not in a hypnotic state unless my arm is cataleptic, and so he just gave it to him what he wanted to, and then his belief system came true. It's like, oh, look, I did it. So I get is as a therapist, we are working with their own belief systems and using their own belief systems to help them heal themselves, perhaps. And like that last sentence in the previous section was using the individual's known and perhaps painful belief system to lead them to a new destination is a graceful way to bring about change. I guess that kind of ties in with that whole example. So cool. Well, I guess we have a couple more minutes and perhaps we can finish up this chapter. Who would like to read?
Oh my gosh, I'll read.
Sure, Sherry,
So,
thank you.
okay. Erickson, Beliefs and Metaphors. In 1979, I had the pleasure of spending 2 days with Dr. Milton Erickson at his home in Phoenix, Arizona. At one point, I asked Dr. Erickson the following question: would you say that you perceive all presenting symptoms and complaints as being metaphors that contain a story about the real problem, and that your basic approach is to build metaphors that contain a story about the possible solution? Dr. Erickson's face lit up, and like a little boy finding a surprise, he said, exactly. One of my most important beliefs is that individuals' belief systems are metaphors, and that the individual operates and responds metaphorically to the world. It takes metaphoric approaches to expand each individual's choices. After the Odyssey through the Magic Theater, the hero in Hermann Hesse's Steppenwolf laughs out loud as he realizes that reality is nothing but the free choice of one of many doors that are open at all times. Cited by Watzlawick. Once an individual discovers 31 flavors of ice cream, he will find it difficult to insist that there's only vanilla. I hope to point out throughout this book that hypnosis is itself a very powerful metaphoric state, that the problem itself is a metaphor based on old belief systems that were produced by conditions that could be labeled hypnosis. It would seem logical, therefore, to grasp and use this powerful tool called hypnosis to build new, graceful, and efficacious, is that right? Efficacious? Whatever that word is, metaphors. These new metaphors will then be directed toward new choices and responses to the real world. Paul, whatever his name is, approaching the same destination from a different direction, stated, the aim of realistic, responsible therapy can only be increased skill in dealing with life's problems as they arise, but not a problem-free life. Thank you, Faster EFT. I mean, that to me is like, okay. Yeah, that's quite interesting. And he was very excited about somebody getting what he was trying to say. I think that was pretty cool. So, I guess the last sentence sort of sums everything up in this whole chapter, that realistic, responsible therapy can only be increased skill in dealing with life's problems as they arise. And there's so many. It's not like we're going to live a problem-free life. It would be nice, but who would want that? It would be so boring. And when would I tap? So, I think that's a great statement right there. That's what I got out of that, period.
Isn't that
Because I
true?
couldn't.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you so much. Yes. Yeah. Anyone else like to share anything on that?
Yeah.
Hey,
I
Susan.
I really love the way that's worded. That question he asks, would you say that you perceive all presenting symptoms and complaints as being metaphors that contain a story? And which of us does not have a story behind our problem, issue, pain, or symptom? There's always a story there. So there's a story about the real problem. And the approach is to build metaphors that contain a story about the solution. So changing our story,
Yeah,
eutaptics, changing the memory.
yes.
It's all
Isn't that
summed up
cool?
right there.
Yes, definitely. Different stories and creating different new belief systems. And then I also like these other two um things. There was that the theater reference is that uh oh whatever, the magic theater, that the hero in Herman Hesse Steppenwolf laughs out loud as he realizes that reality is nothing but the free choice of one of the many doors that are open at all times. But when we are stuck in our problem, we only think there is only one solution, and only if they could see it, my life problems will be gone. Things like that, right? That there's only one solution, and we don't see that there's so many different flavors, but the vanilla. And it's about giving us, eutaptics also, giving us new solutions and new ways of doing it and creating a new story. So that's so cool.
Mhm.
Anyone else would like to share anything on that?
I think that's one of the reasons why Robert often will. One of the questions to ask somebody after they've made a statement is, "How do you know that's true?" And that might give them the opportunity to look at something from the outside at, well, this is how I know it's true. And that might give
Yes.
them the opportunity to cue in with realities that actually, you know, pertinent here anymore.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you, Randall. And also, like, as you were saying, like, how do you see the solution when you're in the box? Because the solution's written outside the box. So like working with a practitioner or asking yourself the art of change questions helps us step out of that box and see the solution, perhaps. Oh, this is what I'm doing this problem for. Who else did it? Or what are the benefits I'm getting from it? What's the future like when all the problem is gone? It's kind of all these different steps, how do I know I have this problem? Why do I believe this is true? um, those help us step out of the box and see the solution outside the box. Because as long as we are in the box, we can't see the solution. Right? Yeah, we're buried in the cereal in the box. Yeah, definitely. So as soon as we can get out of the box, then that's when the prize that's hidden in the box becomes revealed, perhaps. I don't know. Just a little metaphor here. Anyone else has anything else to share? This was a very good chapter.
Is there more to the
Thank
chapter? Are we done of that? Uh,
well, what was that?
I just wanted to know if we were close because I lost track of where we were reading. Because
Yeah, we finished this chapter. Yes.
okay.
Yes.
There was a book called Breaking Through the Money Game and also Breaking Through the Business Game. And the book was titled rather deceptively because you think you're about to read a business book, but in fact, through story, he gives you a very powerful way of looking at your reality and changing it. And the analogy that I loved was that we, um, that the lessons that are most valuable are purposely surrounded by fear and pain and all these other things so that on some level we avoid them, but that if you actually step into them and he has there's literally two paragraphs that you recite that somehow pierce through that fear, and what happens is once you've broken through that outer shell, it explodes with the actual most valuable, powerful, empowering lesson or belief, and it's quite amazing. I did it a few times where as I was reading that book, I came up upon something that was made me fearful, and I recited this strange little paragraph, and it was transformed, and the fear vanished, and then I was actually empowered and experienced a whole new reality.
Sad. I'll have to look it up and see what kind of paragraphs are those paragraphs. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me know if you need to find the name of the book specifically. I'm pretty sure I have the title pretty close anyways.
Breaking through the money game. Okay. All right, I'll let you know if I don't find it. Thank you,
His,
Randall.
his new book, his second, so that was his first book. He says, don't bother reading it. He says, I revamped it. It's called Breaking Through the Business Game now. So,
Oh.
yeah,
Do you remember the author?
I can find out.